Good day, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Ilustrado podcast. And today's discussion will be adding additional commentaries on the very first video that I have officially uploaded on my main YouTube channel, which is the Salakot and its eventual development of what we call today as the Pith helmet or the safari hat. Now, before we begin, if you're hearing any background noise, it's because I'm currently using an air conditioning unit to show you how hot it is. The temperature right now is around 30 degrees Celsius, or for our American friends, it's around 88 degrees Fahrenheit. So please bear with me if you're currently hearing any background noise. I'll try my best in reducing it post-production for this episode. And secondly, I'm currently using my notes, which I made quickly. So I rushed in making the notes for this episode. So yeah, this will be unscripted and an impromptu version of it. So hopefully for future episodes, I'll improve more on my production of this podcast. There might be episodes in the future where I'll also do some freestyle recordings, but for now, I really want to make it more organized so that I won't stutter that much. So without any further ado, the question anyone's asking right now is, why this topic? Why, out of all the topics that I could discuss for my channel, why the Salakot? Why the Pith helmet? Long story short, it's a symbolic introduction for my YouTube channel because, as you can see, the logo that I use consists of a salakot and the tip of a fountain pen. So for new viewers of this channel and new listeners of this podcast, it totally makes sense that I start this channel in explaining what is my logo, essentially. Yeah. As for its connection to the Pith helmet, hopefully you have watched my video about this. So it explains how the Pith helmet was inspired from the Salakot. Okay. And as mentioned earlier, I'll be more inclined to discuss what was left out, like additional commentaries that didn't make it to the video. So yeah, this podcast will be a bit all over the place because the notes that I've made here are a bit jumbled, so it might be hard to follow, but hopefully I could improve more in the future. So for my research of this video, most of the sources that I've used came from the website militarysunhelmets.com. So essentially, it's a website dedicated to collectors of these kinds of helmets. They have done amazing research on the history and evolution of pith helmets and the types of pith helmets used by various colonial powers of the period and their variations and such. I will discuss this more on this podcast. The articles that I've acquired from this website are the ones written by, I think you pronounce this as Suciu. I'll spell it on the description below. And also articles by Stuart Bates and among others. So big shout out to this website because without them, my research about this topic will be very difficult to say the least. Yeah. Anyways, moving forward, with regards to the portion of the video where I discussed the materials being made for the salakot, I mentioned there that it was made from bamboo, turtle shells, and bottle gourds. And for our Filipino listeners here, bottle gourd is upo in Tagalog and tabungao in Ilocano. And as you can see in the variation parts of the video, tabungao is the name of the bottle gourd version of the hat. It's located in the north. If you see the video, one of I think the last makers of these tabungao hats, his name is Teofilo Garcia. Unfortunately, he's one of the few makers of this hat left, and the local government is making great strides in preserving the art of making those hats. And in 2012, he was considered as a national living treasure by the national government. So I guess a big plus in preserving the traditional craft. Speaking of regional varieties earlier, upon research on the salakot, there are a lot of variations of this. You can see it on some parts of the video wherein there are a lot of designs used throughout the islands. But because of space limitations, or rather visual limitations during editing, I could only pick those that are, shall we say, more alluring. Yeah, so yeah, unfortunately I can put all of them in one video. As for the European lexicons, apart from English, salakot is also used in other languages such as, if I recall, Spanish and French as well. Apart from the one about the Guadeloupe headgear, they also use the word as any kind of sun helmet. And I think in Russian as well, they also use the term. Please correct me on the comments if, for our Russian listeners, if the word is also used as well to define a sun hat. What I could find at the moment are in Spanish and French. So type in the comment section if you also use the word to define a sun hat. Yeah. And for Sholapith, Sholapith is like a cork. If you search it on the internet, it visually looks like a cork. The material itself is used not only for making what we call now a pith helmet, it also being used for various handicrafts and also those mini figurines like that you usually see on ivory carvings. Yeah, like they make mini statues of it. I'll share some pictures on the description on what I'm referring to. But basically, this material is used everywhere, not just in the production of hats. And as for the geographic distribution of this plant, I mentioned that it's found in India and other parts of Southeast Asia. As of now, the plant is mostly grown in what we call now Bangladesh. Back then it was part of British India, so technically it's correct. And production of these hats can be found in Chennai and also in Mumbai back then, or what they call Bombay, hence the other name of the hat as Bombay Bowlers. And for those who are curious, the cloth wrapping around the pith helmet, they call it the Puggaree. I'll type in the description on how it's spelled. Probably the auto captions of this episode might be incorrect. So it's called a Puggaree. So it somewhat resembles the turbans being used by the Sikhs. And as you can see in some designs of the pith helmet, the location of the holes depends on how it's being designed. There are some helmets that where their holes are located on top of the helmet, and there are some that on the sides of the helmet, which was rather imitated by the American design of the fiber helmet. Now, the main difference between pith helmet and a fiber helmet is that the pith helmet, apart from being made by the British, is made of the aforementioned Sholapith material, whereas the fiber helmet is mostly made of materials that are native in America. Then the production process of this is usually pressed. And for the design of the fiber helmet, it was interesting to note that Jesse Hawley, the designer of it, was an American football coach for the NCAA or the NCAA. For American football fans and for those who aren't familiar, he coached for the Iowa Hawkeyes, the Dartmouth Big Green, and he was also an assistant coach, I think, to the Princeton Tigers. And the helmet was mainly produced back then by two companies, the Hawley Products Company and the International Hat Company. I think both companies aren't active anymore. The fiber helmet is now being produced by a separate company. I'll put it on the description below on which company is now producing it. And some additional commentaries that I forgot. I forgot to include the NCR Trooper helmet in Fallout New Vegas, because when I was researching this video years ago, I haven't played an FNV back then. But now, as I have uploaded this video, I'm currently playing it, and I was a bit ashamed that I didn't include the NCR Trooper helmet on the video. It was one of the most popular factions throughout the Fallout universe, and I forgot to include that the NCR Trooper helmet was based on the design of the fiber/pith helmet. Yeah, so sorry about that. Hopefully won't happen again. So sorry for the Fallout fans out there. And also, while researching about this topic, I encountered an article in the militarysunhelmets.com website that the Philippine Army in the 1930s also used the pith helmet, or rather the fiber helmet, but instead of using traditional American materials, they used coconut fibers on making these helmets. Yeah. For the bobby and fiber helmets, there's a video made by the history guy, which you should check out, because he made additional details on how the bobby helmet and the fiber helmet was made. And for the Vietnamese pith helmet, the helmet is called, sorry for butchering this word, Mukoi. And right now I have one as a souvenir gift. It would be awkward if I wear it outside unless I'm in Vietnam or somewhere. And lastly, on the part where I said traditional symbols, the script should be traditional attire, not traditional symbols. But because I was running out of time on uploading this video, I rather mention it on this podcast instead. So basically, those are my additional commentaries for this podcast. Hopefully you have absorbed all of those information that I have said earlier, and it would bring added value content for you guys. Hopefully this episode post-production will be as good as it is. So sorry, I did prepare for this podcast soon enough. This is the first episode, but in the future the episodes will be more polished than this. So yeah. And with that, thank you so much for listening for this episode. This is the Ilustrado podcast, signing off.